I think one of the things that, and you'll see this too, is just like a lot of this game in money and in habits and in content creation is really just around like practicing the same stuff over and over and over again. And it's sometimes we lose sight of that because especially in money and in building a business, there's always this new and shiny thing that you could be doing versus just like, I posted about this today in social media, just finish what you started. Just
Welcome everybody back to another exciting show about the About That Wallet podcast, where we help you build strong financial habits. I have the awesome opportunity. This is pretty much my role model. She's been helping me out so much since last year at FinCon, and I am so honored to have her on the show today. She is a nationally recognized money coach who paid off $300,000 of debt in just 3 years and built $1 million of investments by 37 years old. Can you believe that? Before 40. She was also named the top 25 new influencer voices in money by Next Advisor in partnership with Time Magazine. So you are bound to be wild as a boar in the summer. I don't know, but we're going to be an exciting episode today. And I have the honor to bring on Bernadette Joy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
This is so awesome. So first off, I have to say, did you decide on what other color you wanted to do? Because I know you said you were talking about the pink highlights. Did you ever decide on color you wanted to do?
Oh, I love how this podcast is going already. No, I have not decided yet. My hair is, for those of you, obviously you can't see me right now on the podcast. It's pink and it seems to just be getting pinker, which is great, except I like to also wear a lot of pink. So then I just look very pink when I go outside. So I'm thinking about switching it up. I liked your suggestion. I think you said like blue or purple or something.
Yeah, I was thinking like a purple-ish hue.
Yeah, I might go purple. You know what? I'll credit you. You know what? Decided. I'm going purple next.
Let's go. And also, you just recently graduated Amp Up at Charlotte. So how was that?
Yeah. Wow. You really did your research on me. Yes, that was literally last night, our graduation ceremony. So there is this is for any entrepreneur who's listening. There is a company called Interrise that provides curriculum. They call it like a street MBA, basically. Like they take what you would want to learn in an MBA as an entrepreneur and like condense it down into 6 months. And so I was on this accelerator program for the last 6 months, which was quite challenging and just like trying to do that on top of all of the other stuff that I had on my plate. But, and I would come home to my husband and complain that I was just so busy. But now that it's over, I'm kind of sad. Like I learned so much and I, cliche, I learned a lot about myself, but what the biggest lesson for me was this whole idea, maybe we'll talk more about it, of just like, as a content creator, it is so easy to get caught up in wanting to figure out the algorithm and figuring out how to optimize your content. And I was in this accelerator program with all of these people who had almost no social media presence and who were like crushing it. And so I was like, oh, wait, I forgot there's other ways to make money other than just trying to monetize your content. And so now I'm going back to the drawing board and just like putting some old school, marketing and business practices into place that doesn't involve me like having to post content all the time.
Yeah. So, you talked about the other ways of making money. So what do you think attributed mostly to becoming a millionaire then?
So I would say there were 3 particular things. Number one, which you see me talking about on my Twitter and stuff all the time, is just like around budgeting. It sounds so basic and boring and not sexy at all, but I have consistently budgeted for 7 years now, every month. And doesn't mean that the budget actually went well. So let me clarify. It doesn't mean that it actually happened the way I planned, but I attempted a budget every single month since 2016. And that has singularly changed the course of my wealth, my mindset, and my ability to really see the progress. And what's really cool is that now I have like 7 years worth of budgets to look back on and be like, wow, 7 years ago, I was definitely not a millionaire. I was like, really did not have my stuff together. And you can really see the progress over time. So that would be the first thing. The second thing would be really taking a committed approach on being really debt free, which is like a very controversial topic, I think, in personal finance, where people are like, debt is not bad. And like, leverage is good and all this other stuff. And I'm actually in the camp of like, I don't think debt is good or bad unless it is really keeping you from your wealth. And even if it's not like mathematically doing so, the way that I thought about it is like, I just want to have the freedom over my finances, and I don't want to have to pay anyone else first before I pay myself. So committing to being debt free for the last couple of years has really changed the trajectory. And then the last thing I would say is just I don't know if it's me being Asian or me being nerdy or just me being me, but just always being curious about how to be more efficient with my finances. And so what I mean by that is, I'm like, even though I'm considered a quote unquote a debt and like money expert, which sometimes I think is so bizarre that people call me that, but every day I'm learning something new about finances, and I'm always trying to figure out a way to just like tweak 1% better on how I am managing either my investments or my cash. And like that intellectual curiosity, I think, has helped me learn a lot of things. I've also made a ton of mistakes, but I've learned a lot from those mistakes, and just incrementally getting better versus like thinking that one big decision is going to really change my finances forever.
Wow. And that's one of the things, like 7 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, if I get my math right, this was before your first FinCon. And so, and you mentioned, so it's like what, 5 years since you've been going to FinCon?
Yeah, my first FinCon was in 2019, so 4 years. Yeah.
Wow. So, like, take us through like your first FinCon. I love your story, but if you could share for the audience that don't know, your first FinCon to actually being to the main stage.
Okay. So it's embarrassing in hindsight, but then funny enough, a lot of people resonated with that story, and I shared it on the FinCon stage last year. So 2019, I had just closed my first business. This was the business that was supposed to be like the solution to my corporate struggle, right? And so I left my day job in 2016 to run this local like retail boutique in Charlotte. And then in 2019, I realized like, this is not the right business for me. I'm working weekends, I'm working nights. I am not making a lot of money at it. I'm profitable, but like, it doesn't really feel worth it. And I made the really hard decision to shut it down without any other backup plan. And so if I'm being totally honest, I was in this like pity party phase, like last quarter of 2019, and I saw FinCon pop up. I don't know where I saw it, but I was just like, that seems like a cool conference. And I was in Washington, D.C., and I'm just like sitting on my couch and crying. And so like, I might as well just go and see what I can learn there. And at the time, I had just done one season of a podcast, my own podcast, because the podcast came about when people asked me how I paid off $72,000 of student loan debt. I kept repeating myself over and over again. And I went to my husband one day and I was just like, it'd be great if I didn't have to repeat myself and I could just record it. And then I could just like send people the recording. He was like, that's called a podcast, right? And so like, I was like, oh, okay. Like that's what I'll do. So I did one season expecting to never do anything. I had no idea or no plan to be any sort of content creator. And I went to FinCon primarily because Ramit Sethi was the main stage speaker that year. And I was like, oh, I know who he is. Like, and he's cool. And I resonate with a lot of what he says. And so I went, and he was there, and Tanya Hester was there, and then all these other people that I saw online. And I was just like, wow, all these people who are like killing it and crushing it. And I can't believe I'm in the same room. And I told the story that basically I have like my backpack, my notebook, I had like my nerdy glasses on. I was just like wearing like jeans and a t-shirt. And I was like, I can't believe I'm here and I don't know what I'm doing. And also a huge introvert. So I would just like lurk around and like not talk to anyone. So I basically spent that first FinCon just going to every breakout session, trying to take as many notes as possible. I would try to implement things in real time at FinCon. One of the great things I did was like Yaneli Espinal, who now is like a friend of mine, but like back then I was like, wow, I've seen her on YouTube. She's so cool. And I went to her YouTube session on how to start a YouTube channel. And like that night posted my first like YouTube video. And so just really tried to implement things that I learned in real time. And I said, hell or high water, I'm going to like do stuff. I'm not just going to come to the conference and then go home and not do anything. So I became really inspired in 2019 at FinCon, even though I didn't talk to a lot of people then. And then I started building my business. So in 2020, I launched Crush Your Money Goals. And long story short, kind of incrementally built that over the last couple of years. And then last year, FinCon reached out to me and said, hey, we want you to be on the main stage. And I was like, huh? Who, me? Like, why? Wow. And they're like, we love your story. We love that you like came to that first FinCon. We've been watching you like, and you've grown so much since then. And we think that you have something really valuable to share with our audience. And my first instinct was to say no. I actually almost said, no, I don't want to do it because I was just like, what could I possibly say to this room of content creators who are more successful than me, who have like amazing stories? Like, I'm just going to sound like the girl who like thinks she knows everything, but actually, you know, all these people are smarter. Like I had all of those thoughts, but I said yes to doing it. And I'm so glad that I did. And now I'm on the FinCon board and now I get to do a lot of other cool stuff and I get to meet amazing people like you.
That is awesome because one of the things that I'm glad because you were my first FinCon. So,
Aww.
you know, and for me, like, I was like, this is my first time. I'm going from Sunday to Sunday. And I want to learn everything. So I wanted to get the layout of the land. I want to figure out like where all the shops are going to be at, where all the rooms are going to be at. Because like you say, you want to go to all the stuff. And I wanted to make sure I get all my money's worth. Second,
absolutely.
Right. So, and I was glad that you were the closeout because even though I felt like the day one, even with like the mastermind, I felt like I got my money's worth. But listening to how you were saying, as far as flowing your business, I know it's you love acronyms.
I love acronyms. Yes.
So with Flow Your Business really has changed the way I do my whole podcast show to the point where now I'm at the F side of the house where like I think it was like figuring out something. I can't remember that.
Facing your fears with habits. Yes.
Yes. That's right. I mean, this is a habit show. How did I forget that one? So, and then I'm at L, which is limiting my availability. So now I'm working on the O and the W piece of it. So I'm still making my way through the road.
That's great.
And I have to commend you and thank you so much for having that setup.
Well, first of all, thank you for showing up and being that new person, right? And investing in yourself and coming to a conference like that. Because I'll be honest, like sometimes coming to those conferences can be really intimidating for a lot of people. And it's overwhelming, especially if you're new and you don't know anyone. And so I never would have guessed it because the way that you were posting and the way that you had the energy around you when you were at that first FinCon, like I'm surprised that was your first one. And I remember seeing your posts about my talk and stuff too. I was like, this guy is like you really listened, like you outlined all the points and you, even a couple of months after, remember you would post something else. So it wasn't like a one and done for you. So really you have to give credit to yourself on that. But I also have to say like, you know, I had such a worry about being the closing. If you saw me during that conference, like basically the whole conference, I was just like, cause I was just like, I just want to get this over with. Like, I just want to be done with it. And it was so funny because I'll tell you a little behind the scenes. My husband and I, the second day was, I think, for FinCon was Yaneli Espinal and then Anthony O'Neill, who I've followed for a long time as well. And Anthony O'Neill is one of those people that I was just like, I've always just really respected him. And that day we come back in the elevator and I'm just silent and my husband is silent. And he's just like, he used a different word, but he said, you can't mess this up. And he said it in a loving way, meaning he's just like, people had their A game on, like, you know, like you're good, but you know, you want to be great. Right. And so I felt kind of like this pressure of just like, well, you know, I wasn't expecting to be like the best person or anything like that, but I knew I could do better. So that night I came back to my hotel room and I just like practiced and practiced and practiced over and over again. And I think one of the things that, and you'll see this too, is just like a lot of this game in money and in habits and in content creation is really just around like practicing the same stuff over and over and over again. And it's sometimes we lose sight of that because especially in money and in building a business, there's always this new and shiny thing that you could be doing versus just like, I posted about this today in social media, just finish what you started. Just finish what you started and get so good at it. And so for Flow Your Worth, I've delivered that talk several times, even after FinCon, and I've made tweaks to it since then. And I really encourage everyone who's listening to this podcast of just like, listening to people like Anthony and hearing all these great tips is awesome, but like pick a few of them that you can really stick to and like finish what you start. So I love that you said that you're on F and you finish F and L and now you're on W. Like it's been like over a year since I delivered that talk. And the fact that you're working on that means that you've really stuck to it versus like finding something shiny and new to work on.
Cause I've been talking to other content creators is like, some of them are feeling that burnout sensation.
Oh yeah.
Like it's getting monotonous. It's like, what is that energy to bring it fresh again, make content creation like fun again. So how do you, like, what type of mindset or psychological impact, that kind of keeps you going?
Sounds cliche, but for me, I really felt the burnout like earlier this year. Like I was so over it. I was ready to shut down all of my accounts because I'm sure a lot of people feel this. It's like, I'm doing all the things they told me to do, but I'm not getting engagement. Yeah. People are not coming the door. And so I had to really sit back and say, okay, like I could be mad about this or I can pivot just like I tell other people to do. And the biggest mindset reset for me was getting out in real life again. And so like I even mentioned with the AMP accelerator, like I was physically in a room every other week for 3 hours with 20 other business owners who were talking about real stuff and who were being really honest about where they're struggling with their businesses. And sometimes as an online business, like we don't get that, right? We don't hear that. So we're just like left alone with our own thoughts, which is dangerous sometimes. And so getting out in real life, having real conversations with other people, not just online, like actually like in person has been really helpful for me. And then the other piece has been getting back into having real conversations with the people that I serve. And so it's been it keeps going on in my head. I keep repeating to myself, serve my audience, not the algorithm, serve my audience, not the algorithm, serve my audience, not the algorithm, which is like reminding me like the original reason I started this business was to help and serve people. But somewhere along the way, I would say, especially as I've grown my platform, I started worrying more about the metrics of like what my like engagement looked like online, or how many people would sign up for my masterclass, or how many comments I would get on a particular post that I thought was going to do really well. And then like one day I was just like, this is not what I signed up for. What I signed up for was to help individual people. So for me, I've actually been proactively going back to my previous students and reaching out to them and just saying, like, no sales pitch, no nothing, just saying, hey, how are you? I miss you. I would love to hear how you're doing since like we last interacted with whether it be our last coaching session or the last free class that you went to, and just getting real life feedback from people. And that's really revived me in my business and reminded me that this is really about people.
Okay. So, cause I was actually thinking about that. Cause I went to another conference and they were mentioning about taking care of the people that have been supporting you before, and which is what you're doing. And have you noticed that they're still on track, or is it just something that they fell off on?
I would say there has been kind of two camps that I've seen. There has been the people who have been on track and surprised me because they just never mentioned it. Like like not everyone is out there online, like boasting of all their stuff. Right. So just an example, like I just sent out a newsletter, and this is the importance of like being consistent with stuff. I got out of the habit of sending a regular weekly newsletter, and I decided to get back into that habit. And like my third weekly newsletter in, one of my clients or my students from last year messaged me, and she said, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I've paid off, $35,000 since we last worked together, and I'm on track with everything that I've done, and I continue to keep learning from you, even though like I haven't been in class. And I was just like totally mind blown, right? Like, and she took the time out of her day to let me know that. And I sent her back. I was like, just so you know, like that made my day. Like, I'm so happy to hear that. And also she happens to be someone who I've never met in person, but she lives in my city. And I said, like, if you want to go to a dance class, you want to go do something, like, let me know. Like, I would love to actually give you a big hug and congratulate you in person. So there's those people who are on track, but they're silently celebrating. And then on the other side of the spectrum, there's been people who, another example this past week was someone just signed up for my upcoming boot camp, and she's been following me since like 2017. So, and I had no idea that she had been. And so she signed up for my boot camp, and she reached out to me and she said, I just want to let you know, I've been following you this whole time, and things have happened in my life. My business shut down. I have another new business I'm starting. All these other things happened, but now felt like it was the right time for me to join it. So like, think about that. Like 7 years ago, she knew who I was, and she only signed up, now. Wow. And so, like when you ask the original question of like, is it because people have fallen off, or they are on the right track? I mean, obviously there's going to be the broad spectrum of it. But what I think is really interesting is that it's been a lot of people who've been kind of in the shadows, who reach out for different reasons, but all of them, what I realize is like your audience will find you at the right time that they need you. It's not so like that's such the importance of consistency, is that like you never know, like they might not need you right now, but they might need you 7 years later.
Right. That is crazy. Okay, so then it gives me, thank you. I needed that extra push to keep going, because there's been times I just said like, I'm tired of recording and asking the same questions, but I do get different answers. But I enjoy talking to people, and some days I'm just tired of putting out the content because it's so much work. So
it is a lot of work.
Yeah. And so because you mentioned about the women before, and I remember hearing in some of the many podcasts that I've listened to you about, you mentioned about women. Why is it so important to you that women are financially free?
I would have given you a different answer a couple of weeks ago, but I think I kind of relearned my why this past week. So, I could give you all the stats about, how women hold on to less net worth, have less for retirement, and live longer than men. Like that's just like the practicality of it. But the deep-rooted reason why it's important for me is because for me personally, I did not have a female role model who was savvy with finances, and therefore they ended up relying on men. And that's not a bad thing, except the men didn't know what they were doing either. So, if the men knew what they were doing, I guess that would have been a different story. But this is kind of deeply personal, but a couple weeks ago, I had to go out to Las Vegas. So my mom lives in Las Vegas. My brother just moved out to Las Vegas a couple of years ago to help take care of my mom because my father passed away 2 years ago. And we have another family, Filipino family, who I would consider like my parents' best friends growing up. So even though we were not blood related, like I grew up with them, like they're basically my auntie and uncle. And they're the matriarch of that family, who I call Mama. She passed away like a couple of weeks ago. She was 103. Okay. So I call her my no drama mama, because I think her secret to like living for so long is like she just did not give an F. Like she was just like minding her own business. She never raised her voice. She was just chill all the time. And why I bring this up is because when I went to Las Vegas last week or the week before for the funeral, I was reminded about how all the women in my kind of immediate family, like, were so stressed out about money. And they were so stressed out about money, and they didn't have control over it. And so I'm saying that in the sense of just like my mom, I love her, but she relied solely on my dad to take care of all the financial decisions. And so when he passed away, it created such a struggle for me and my brother in particular to figure out what to do, because like she didn't know where anything was. Like she didn't even know where the mailbox key was. because my dad always checked the mail for her. And so personally, I've seen where, if women are not in control of their finances, it can not only impact themselves, but it impacts their immediate circle around them. And then with the funeral this past week, like, what I didn't know what was happening behind the scenes was that everyone in that family was stressed about how to manage the funeral expenses. And so for me, it's very deeply personal that women, and I would say especially women of color, there's a lot of this like patriarchal view still that's like, oh, like the money is a man's job. And I don't, even if I'm the breadwinner and even though I'm making good money myself, like I should let my husband kind of take care of it. And I'm so not about that. If you ever meet me personally, you'll figure out like me and my husband, like who's who's kind of like in control of things. But aside from that, like the impact of women having control over their finances, there's like this ripple effect of everyone else around them too. So I don't think it's just for the women. I think also all the men who have a strong financially independent woman would stand to benefit from that as well.
I like that. Yeah, that right there, it sets the tone for everything. I love it. So one last question before we dive into the final four question, which is, do you ever deal with imposter syndrome?
So I don't like the word imposter, the term imposter syndrome, because I think it's like, how like a couple of years ago, everyone's like authenticity, and then everyone started using it and now it's imposter syndrome. But the short answer is yes, absolutely, all the time, pretty much on a daily basis. And so I experience it, but I think the difference for me personally is that I just don't let it stop me from doing what I was doing. And I've had to just come to accept that that's just a daily occurrence of what's going to happen. But rather than like ruminate over it, I try to focus on stuff that I'm going to work on instead. So I think this is actually great that we're on a camera here. Like, I'll just show you, like, I don't know if you can see this,
your schedule.
So on my wall, you see my schedule there, and then you see all these like papers up there. Like, those are my business goals.
Nice.
And so rather than like focus on my imposter syndrome, anytime I'm feeling that, I literally stare over at that wall and be like, well, what do I got to do? And I just go do stuff.
So which goes back to the first acronym in your flow, which is face fears with habits.
That's right. I actually do. I do actually practice what I preach.
Nice. Now, because I know you have your crush money goals thing, because will you be able to kind of do a quick rundown what does crush mean, and before we get to the final four?
Sure. So CRUSH is the acronym I use for anyone who is just trying to start off their new money plan. And so the C stands for curate your accounts. So the first thing I ask people to do is just go clean out the crap in your accounts. So if you've got accounts that are not being used or they're not being maximized, or you just don't know what they're doing, like your investment accounts, like go curate them. I use the analogy of like my sneaker collection. Like the way that I curate sneakers is the way that I curate my accounts. Then R stands for reverse into independence. And so I teach people how to calculate and how to figure out how much independence is actually going to cost them and what that number is going to be. Then U stands for understand your net worth. And so I ask, and most people don't do this, but they have no idea how much money they actually have and where all of their net worth is sitting. And so we go through each of their accounts and then actually calculate what their net worth is. And then S stands for spend intentionally. And that's where I teach people how to get on a very simple, not stressful, not administrative budget. That's actually fun and uses emojis. And then H stands for heal your money wounds. And that to me is one of the most important reasons why I decided to be a financial coach and not a financial advisor, is that I acknowledge that a lot of money comes with emotional baggage. And so once we get all these numbers together and we get our feelings about it, then we start to tackle, well, what are these beliefs and what are these things that have happened to us in the past that have legitimately made us afraid to move forward with our finances and to start tackling those.
Nice. Thank you so much for breaking that down. And if you like this part, just go ahead on and just like, subscribe, follow everybody that's on this. And make sure you sign up, because you definitely want to sign up for that course. It's an amazing course. All right. You ready for the final four?
Yeah, let's do it.
let's go. Number 1, what does wealth mean to you?
Wealth for me is the freedom to use my energy the way that I want to.
Number 2, what was your worst money mistake?
Oh gosh, the worst one. I mean, I could name 100 of them. The worst money mistake I made. The thing that comes up to me today is I spent a stupid amount of money on like alcohol in my 20s. And not that I'm against like drinking, but like I was buying rounds of shots for people at the bars that I didn't even like. I think that's the issue. Like, I just wanted to be cool and I wanted to impress people. And I lived in New York City as a 20-something-year-old and I work in banking. And I'd be like, round of shots on me. Like, that was so dumb. If it was at least people that I liked and I still talk to now, then it wouldn't have been so dumb. But it was all these people I don't even like.
Fair enough. Number 3, what is your favorite financial or non-financial book?
Ooh, I'll give my favorite financial book is Happy Money by Ken Honda. It's just like a super simple, easy read for anyone. It's like a tiny book and I don't have a good attention span. So that's a good one. And then my favorite non-financial book is The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And I particularly like that one because I read it very early on in my career and I still like reference it today.
Nice. Number 4, what is your favorite dish to make?
Okay. So, chicken adobo. It's a Filipino like staple and it's super easy. If you Google it, it's everyone who ever eats it at my house is like super impressed and like really and wants more and like always eat seconds and thirds. So it's basically like either chicken thighs or chicken legs, and then you put soy sauce. I use coconut aminos because I'm one of the few Asians that's allergic to soy sauce. That's a whole other story. So coconut aminos, vinegar, onions, garlic, bay leaves, pepper, salt, and a little bit of water. And that's it. And you stick it in a slow cooker for like 3 hours and it's delicious. And then you just have it over rice.
Oh, that's real simple. Okay. I might have to make that happen.
And it's cheap.
Yes, yeah. We all about that money over here too.
Yeah, right.
The very last question of the show, which is, where could people find out more about you?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. You're such a joy. You're such a light. I love your energy. And the best way that people can find me is if you're interested, even if we never work together, I have a free guide that's available for anyone. It's the 10 resources that help me become a debt-free millionaire. And it's at crushyourmoneygoals.com/free guide. And I am primarily on Instagram at Bernadette Joy.
And that is spelled DEPT.
I know, right? Isn't that clever?
Yes. Oh man, thank you so much for coming on the show. Like I said, you're my idol, and I love everything that you're doing, and I greatly appreciate you taking your time out of your day and outside of your scheduled business hours to come join me during my business hours to do this recording. And if anybody, I know for sure, those of you who are listening, you got something out of this. So make sure that you like, subscribe, and share again this episode, because this is something that everybody needs to accomplish their goals and become the next millionaire in your family. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm out. Peace.